conscious, this first meeting might mean more than what you think. And hopefully, a lot of you will be able to keep the same kids. We try to keep that as a goal. And as long as you're here and we can work that out, then.
To us, that's
Yes, it is.
That's fast. But for them, it is exhausting to think they have to be there for that long. So say, she has the example. First, we're gonna sing. They can say, okay, well, I'm gonna sing, and then we're gonna take a break. So we're gonna chill out soon. Make it small.
It does. It needs. That's a really good point. It needs to be small. It needs to be really clear. We'll get you some paper schedules and some picture schedules, but it's a lot of you kind of coaching them through that. And they won't always be able to ask you what the schedule is. So just because they don't ask doesn't mean that they're not interested in knowing that.
And you're hopefully this getting together will make you feel comfortable to ask your leader, my kid's getting anxious, are we going to do this the whole time? Because if they're hating it and you're thinking, okay, then I know I need to build a break in or whatever. So that's scheduling even within the 20 minutes. And again, 20 minutes doesn't seem long, but for these kids doing some of the same things, and hopefully we'll have the rapport that we can say, okay, we've done this long enough to your leaders. Can we move on? But yeah, even within that 20 minutes, there's going to need to be some structure too on what they're doing.
And that's something too that honestly I can't stand up here right now and tell you exactly a play-by-play on how to do this because I don't know, and I don't know if your buddy is going to struggle through music, or if they're going to struggle through dance, or if they're going to do awesome from start to finish. This is a very individualized thing, so that's why we can't really make a formula, but we will have to rely on our leaders, our music leaders, theater leaders, and our dance leaders to really keep us informed so that we can provide structure and schedule for them. It's going to be extra important with the number of kids that we have this year. So. Yes. If you don't know what's going on, you need to find out too. Because if you are feeling like I don't know exactly what the plan is, and you can't communicate that to your buddy, then they're probably feeling anxious about it too and wondering. First then statements are good, especially, some of these kids, this is not their first rodeo, and they're used to these first then statements. I mean, they probably will give them to you. I have a 3-year-old at home, and she will give me first then statements. I mean, it's just once kids are conditioned to this, they like to know. So they like to know first we're going to do this, and then we can do this. It's not, well, we're going to play the drums for a while. Well, then what? That is not good enough for a lot of these kids. So instead you say, first we're going to play the drums, then we're going to go walk in the hallway to dance, something like that.
And that'll be another thing with the leaders. If you have a kid who's asking for the drums, are we going to play the drums? Are we going to play the drums? Are we going to play drums? You need to ask the leader, are we going to play the drums? Yes, but first we're going to do this and this, and then they're working towards the drums. Yeah. We'll really have to be on top of that. I think that this is our survival mode this year.
And this is one thing that we've done for people that have done it before, or people who haven't done it. We use timers a lot. A lot of kids that work with us are very visual. And for us to say, how many people that have done it before used a timer last year? Anyone? A couple people. There's some
We're going to try to have them a little more accessible, I think.
I just bought 5 of them today on Amazon.
Yeah.
They're timers you can use on your phone. They're little timers, but when doing the first and then, they might need a little bit more. They might need to know, okay, how many more minutes until we're going to do what I want to do because I'm tired of doing this. So we'll have those things available for you, and that sometimes makes all the difference in the world.
If you think, I guess, like I said, we can't give you a formula for what your kid is going to need. So if you feel like you're having trouble getting your kid to attend to whatever task it might be, or if they're having trouble transitioning, come to any of us and we will help come up with a plan for you, because if you don't have a plan and you're not using the same thing consistently, it's going to be hard, and we're happy to help you with that. That's what we're here for. We don't expect you guys to know all of this. That's why they want us around. So we will be happy to help you come up with a plan if you feel like your kid is getting kind of lost in the structure. One more thing I want to hit on this slide and then we'll move on giving choices. I think that is my big take-home message for this year. Instead of, this is an extracurricular activity, so kids are here because they want to be here. They
We
don't have to go here,
Right.
you know?
We think they want to be here.
We think they want to be
Yeah.
here. So, there should be a lot of choices that are given to them. We want them to participate and we want them to be involved, but if they sit next to you or if they sit next to somebody else, does it really matter if they're sitting there and they're listening and they're doing the activity? It really doesn't. If they want to go to the next activity on the elevator versus taking the stairs, does it really matter? No. And if you give them that choice, that helps them feel more involved in the activities. It helps them, feel like they're not always being told what to do. These kids get told what to do Monday to Friday, it's hard. And then they're here on a Saturday, and it should not be, you have to do this, this, and this. We want to provide structure, but we also want it to be fun, and we want them to have choices in it. So giving them choices like, okay, we're going to dance. Do you want to take the stairs or do you want to take the elevator? Well, they're still getting to dance. You win, you win that battle, but they have a choice in which way that they want to do it. Do you want to sit next to me or do you want to sit next to your friend? They're still sitting down. You win, but they are getting to choose. I had something that I was going to say.
Well, and when you're doing these, it's important that it says only provide acceptable options. So
Yes,
that's
where
I
I'm
bet
going
that's
with
where you're going. So
Yeah.
if you think about like your parents, when they would get frustrated with you, they'll say, "We can sit in this car all day." Well, no, you're not literally
Right.
going to sit in the car all day. No parent would actually probably do that. So you give choices that you are
Say, my
maybe
parents tried that with us. But
so make choices that you're happy with doing either one, and they feel like they have a little bit of control over the situation.
and and then in that, asking them if they want, do you want to do this? One of those choices is no. And if they say no, you ask them if they wanted to do it, and they say no, you're like, oh, okay. How do you get out of that? Because you gave them a choice. You're not going to always remember that, and all of us who have heard that have screwed that up before. But keep that in the back of your head. Do you want to do this?
Or if you say,
Are you ready?
you don't want your friends to leave you, do you? You want to go with them. No, I want my friends. And then you're like, oh, well, I guess we'll be sitting here and you don't win in that situation. So that is really the key point, is giving choices that help accomplish the goal that you want to accomplish. Why is structure so important? These kids they benefit from it. Research shows it over and over again. Experience shows it over and over again. They need this structure. You get better outcomes when you use the structure. Helps them relieve their anxiety. That is huge. You will not believe how many kids are anxious about what to do next until you tell them, and then it just sort of brings a calm to them. And it gives them something to work towards. If you had to show up at work every day and you had no idea what the outcome was going to be, then you probably wouldn't work that hard. But if you knew that I'm going to work and I'm going to get paid on Friday, you're going to work towards that goal. It's the same type of thing. It gives kids something to work for. Any questions on structure? Any veterans have any examples that they can think of, or we're going to break the ice later. Okay, positive reinforcement. This is a big one. You have to provide specific verbal praise for positive behaviors. It doesn't always have to be verbal, I guess. No, but that's what we typically think of. Make sure that you're only giving reinforcement to things that are desirable. So if a kid is spinning around on the ground, not paying attention to the music, you don't want to say, oh, you're doing such a good job. No, they're not. They're spinning on the ground. That's not a good job. You want to give praise for things that you want them to be doing. Participating in activity, trying something new. Even if they're not successful at it or they didn't really fully participate, if they try something new, then that's awesome. Talking to a friend, being a leader, being patient. You have to look for the positive in everything. I think most of the times our kids are doing something that's sort of what we want them to do, even if it doesn't look like that. So, for example, to go back to the kid that's laying on the ground and spinning around and not paying attention to the music. Well, I'm glad you're staying with the group. You know, I like how you're staying with the group. And they're looking at you like, what? I don't think I was doing anything right. You can usually find something positive in almost everything. It's hard to do, but we really need to try it. Kids really benefit from that. Do you have anything else to add with that?
Just make sure it seems like, oh, I can do it once and like then they'll be good for all of music. But really find like those little things and really make it a big deal. If they're sitting with the group, well, to us that seems a little bit silly, but for them that may be like the biggest thing that they've done all day. So make it a celebration, make it a party.
You gotta learn how to
And
make
then,
it a party.
Yeah, and this is one too, like she said before, we can't tell you exactly what to do because you're gonna have some kids that are almost in high school and they're gonna want you to tell them every 5 minutes they're doing a good job. They know what they're doing, they know what they're supposed to be doing. You're gonna just be giving high fives or saying that was really cool what you did, but there are some kids you're never gonna shut up. And you're just gonna keep all the time keeping them engaged. So you'll have to feel that out and ask people around and figure out what's
It
best.
is very individual. That is important to say because when you're 14, you don't want somebody running around saying like, "That was awesome singing."
Yeah. No.
It's not cool anymore, you know. But if you're walking down the hall with them and you're like, "Hey, you knew every word of that song. That was cool." That might be the way that they take it. So
Yeah.
Why is it important? Lets your buddy know what they are doing well. Encourages them to repeat that again. So if you say, you know, I like how you were drumming, then hopefully they're more likely to participate in the drumming next time. It serves as a model for other kids. Maybe the kid next to him is not really doing such a good job drumming, but he hears you give kid A praise for drumming, and so he's like, hey, maybe if I drum, they'll pay attention to me too. So it's a good model, and it helps build a relationship between you and your buddy. Everyone likes to be told that they're doing things right, so it will help reinforce your relationship.
Yeah.
We're gonna break.
Yep. We're gonna take a few minutes to work on some team building so we get to know each other. So is Taylor back there?
Yeah.
Taylor, you give directions.
Okay, so everybody get up.
That's what we've got.
I
can't help it. So
The next thing we're going to talk about is language. I'm a speech therapist, so I can get really kind of nerdy about all of this. So if I'm talking too much about it, stop me.
We
But
will.
I think it's so important. How you communicate with these kids will make or break you. You have to use simple and concise language. Most of these kids probably absorb, this is not a statistic, this is just me guessing, probably absorb, I don't know, maybe 50% of what you say. That might be highballing it. I don't know.
And if they absorb it, it doesn't mean they understand it.
Right. So, less is more because if you really, most of what you say, they don't need to know anyway if it's all fluff, and that tends to be the 50% that they absorb, then you really haven't gotten anywhere. You just kind of wasted your breath and overwhelmed them. So, simple, concise language. Let me think of an example of this. Kind of what Kirsty was saying earlier, sort of chunking things and breaking it down. You don't need to say, hey, I'm so glad you're at Prison Project. We have music first, and then I think we have dance, and then we'll probably go to theater, and we might go up and sing Waiting on the World to Change for a while, and you give them just like everything. Throw it all out. You would just say, we have music first today, and that is probably a better starting point. Some of us, that's not in our nature. We like to talk. So cutting it down to what you really need to communicate is so important.
Something I've learned this year.
Can you
that
guys hear her?
Some people do is
Okay.
side talk, they kind of call it, or whatever, where you're just talking about what we're doing.
Yeah.
I don't like that. It
I don't
annoys
either.
me personally to have someone in my classroom doing that, and it annoys them as
Maybe
well.
explain that.
Probably like, oh, we're playing the drums and we're going really fast, and oh my goodness, look at him, he's playing the drums and he's going really fast, and he's using
Okay.
his hands, but you're using your arms, and oh my goodness. No, we don't need a narration of what's going on, and I would say almost all the kids here will not enjoy that at all.
Will not
At all.
enjoy that and will actually get overstimulated by that. Not only will they not enjoy it, but it will get them to the point where they freak out. Kind of like when I'm in a store and the music is really loud and there's someone really like nosy trying to talk to me, I want to get the heck out of there. I don't want to do anything that they want me to do. I don't want to look at what they're trying to sell me. I'm overstimulated and I'm shutting down. And that's what these kids will do.
Yes.
And so you got to cut that out.
Same with the leaders. This will be good for the leaders. A lot of teachers do this.
We're not in here.
Oh, they're not.
I'm in here.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, I'll,
Victoria.
we can share this with them. They're saying, oh shoot, we were gonna do, Wait on the World to Change today, but I don't have the music, so no, we don't need to hear
Yeah.
all of that. They don't need to hear it, because then they're saying they heard Wait on the World to Change, but you're not doing it. So now they're mad because they thought they were gonna do it. They just don't like it. I would say all the kids here will benefit from just, and that's not saying don't have conversations, especially with the red group. You're gonna have conversations and you're gonna talk, but for instruction purposes, they don't need any extra.
Consider these kids on a need-to-know basis.
That is
Like,
a great idea.
honestly,
Oh,
if,
write that
if
down.
they need to know it right then, tell them directly. Keep it short. If they don't need to know right then, wait.
We need shirts that say that.
Yeah, I like that.
Or the kids do. I'm
I'll
on
probably steal that from you.
I love that.
And I just keep going back to like the red group. We keep, using
They're the
like,
oldest kids.
Yeah, and we keep talking about the kids like the yellow and green group that are gonna need this stuff more. The red group, those kids are in regular classes. They're going and stuff, but probably in their accommodations still are less instructions. Just less. Exactly. They just what they need to know.
And think about, can I use Josh as an example? So Josh, who you saw, who was one of the reasons that I cried, because he's awesome. He is going through. I mean, he is so involved in Prism Project, you can't even imagine. He knows so many more musical things than what I do, and so when he's hearing the kids play, he's thinking like, that was supposed to be whatever. They played the wrong note. That's wrong. That's wrong. And so he's focusing on that, and he's got a million things. But then he's also saying, but I can't tell them that they played the wrong note because that's rude, and I'm not supposed to do that. And he's having all this inner stuff going on with him because he's a musical genius, I would say, and he is dealing with all of that. And so then when you're trying to sit over there and say, hey Josh, what's your favorite song? What do you like to do? Oh, you need to come over here, you need to come over there. He's like, that is enough to make you explode. So he's an older kid. He's in regular classrooms a lot of times. He, he's older, all of that, but he still really benefits from those concise instructions. I mean, he's a perfect example of something like that. Joel is the same way. Joel has a lot going on in his head. He's always thinking about stuff. He's going a million miles an hour, and if you can just give him the bare minimum, he's going to be able to absorb a lot more of that.
And that takes away some of the conversation. Like some of it's not a conversation. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna have fun about it, and there are choices, but we're not really gonna talk about it. We're just gonna go do it. And let's go have fun doing it while we're there.
Right.
So that'll help too.
Yeah, it's really important to kind of cut down. Need to know basis. Be direct. Don't kind of say, well, I think maybe we should try to go over there. No, it's not. I think maybe we should kind of try to. It's, let's go over here. Or better yet, it's time to go over here.
Or go over there.
Or go over there. Yeah, those
Sit down,
kinds of
don't
things.
say anything.
Being direct, because again, it goes back to the choices. If you give that open door, that kind of choice, like, oh, maybe we should. Well, they might not feel that way. So you've sort of set yourself up for failure there. Discuss a request one thing at a time. That goes back to not overloading. Really, in music, you don't need to be talking a lot about what you're going to do in theater or what the expectations are, that kind of thing. Wait time. This is something that I feel like gives me job security because people do not do this. And not only with kids, I work with adults now too, and people do not do this. You have to give them wait time. They do not process as fast as we do, always. Or just people process differently. I don't even want to say as fast as we do versus how they process. Processing time is different. There are a lot of kids that every time you give a direction, it takes them maybe 10 to 15 count to process that direction. Every time you re-give that direction in that 10 to 15 second window, you hit a reset button, and they're starting all over again. That is so frustrating for them. They will not be able to complete what you want them to do because they are not given the appropriate amount of time to process that and get it done. I can be impatient. I have to count in my head sometimes when I say something like, Andrew, sit down. Sometimes you have to go. And you might notice by the time he gets 6 or 7, he sits down, even though he was up doing something else. And then you think, okay, he heard me. He just needed that longer amount of time. Don't expect immediate results. Just because you don't get immediate results doesn't mean that they haven't heard you and they're not trying to process through that. But if I didn't give him that 6 seconds and I told him to sit down 4 times in that 6-second period, he's going to start to get pissed off. You know, I mean, he's going to have to reset and retry to comprehend that every time that I talk to him, and we're not going to get anywhere. You have to allow wait time. Sometimes that's more important for some kids than others, but I would say as a rule, it's pretty applicable to most kids, would you say? Maybe not 10 seconds either, but at least a little bit of time.
Well, and some of them are managing behaviors in that time. So even if it's not a neurological thing that they're processing, it's just their behaviors and their emotions. Oh, you just told me to do something I really don't want to, but I know I shouldn't. Like she said, they're sometimes talking themselves into doing it. So they do. Sometimes they just need that time. And this is a hard line, you know, because some of them are going to take advantage. Oh, she asked me to do it, but then she waited a while and I didn't do it, and I got to go do this, and I touched this 3 times and I really wanted to. So the next time she tells me, so, you know, you'll figure it out or you won't know, and you just need to ask, because if that gets away from you too, then you're going to be feeling it. But it's nicer to try first to give them some time. It's always nicer to try.
And with them too, it won't always be quiet wait time. So I worked with a kiddo a few years ago. I would say, Elena, please sit down with me, and she'd talk to herself. And it's not that she didn't hear me or she's not thinking about it, but she just talks through it, and it may be nothing to do with what I'm saying. She's like, oh, the bird is blue. I don't want to react to that because she may still be thinking about, oh, Elena, come sit down. Yeah. So just think about those things.
They don't always show attention the same way that we do. A lot of these kids, like going back to Josh, he has so much going on that I can't even begin to relate to because it's smarter than what I do. You know, I mean, the music stuff that he's attending to is beyond what I can even think of. And he's working through all of that and trying to absorb all of that, and then I'm giving directions. It's hard to pull yourself away from something that you're really interested in to go do something that someone else is telling you. So just really put yourself in their shoes. I mean, you'll get to know these kids and you'll kind of know what makes them tick a little bit, and it just takes Josh a little bit longer to pull away from what he's really interested in and involved in to do what he's supposed to do. And it might not look like he is involved in anything to you, but probably because, for me at least, he's smarter than I am. So I don't know.
And yeah, and some of the language too is going to be getting their attention first.
Yes.
That'll help too. You know, make sure they're paying attention to you. We're not going to assume they're defiant right away.
Right.
They're just not doing it.
Right. And I think that's a very good point to make. We are not assuming that anyone is doing things out of defiance. And I think that sometimes in Prison Project, because of some of the experiences that we've had with some of the kids and people that have been here before, you can kind of probably think of some kids that fit this picture, but we think that they're being defiant and we think that they're not doing the right thing, and we kind of come in at Prison Project day one and think, not on my watch, we're gonna whip this into shape. And I think as a team we're trying to really step back and say, well, why are they having this issue? This is an extracurricular activity, so if they're not having fun or if they're not engaged, what can we do to make it different? And not just think, you're going to do what I say and you're going to like it. I mean, that's not the stance we want to take here. We don't have time to change behaviors. All of you will probably have experiences in your teaching career that you have to change the way someone is behaving to be able to function in your classroom and to help them better their lives, but this is not the place to do that. And it's hard for me sometimes because I do like to fix things and fix behaviors, but it's not what we're here to do. We're here to help them engage in Prison Project. Think back to those goals on the first slide. Those are our goals. We're not here to fix behaviors. So that's wait time. Socialization, again, this is a goal for Prison Project. I think it's one of the overall goals that the directors think of. It's hard, there's a lot going on, and socialization is a difficult thing for a lot of these kids. We want to try to encourage it as much as possible and do as much as possible to encourage them to interact with each other. If you have kids that don't need a lot of support to participate in an activity, and it's a partner activity, say you're clapping or we've done like hand game type things in the past, and if your partner doesn't, or if your buddy doesn't really need you to partner with them to be able to participate, then have them partner with another kid who doesn't really need such a direct model to be able to participate. Simple things like that we can do. Your buddies need you and they want you there, but really this is about them, and we would rather see them interact with peers rather than adults. So anything that you can do to help facilitate that, or if the kids are kind of having some downtime and you know that two kids in your group are really into SpongeBob, have one of them ask the other about it, or whatever. It doesn't have to be some big planned activity or like awesome idea. It's just general interaction. These kids struggle with that in a lot of ways, and so anything that you can do to encourage that, think about what you would do if you were in a group of people. Try to encourage them to do those same types of things. We can help you more with that too. One thing that we talked about a little bit last year was kind of pairing some buddies in groups, and we'll kind of look for those opportunities if we see them. Red Group has 4 girls this year.
Yes. 4 girls.
Which is really cool. Not to say that girls can only hang out with girls, because that's not the case either. But there might be some similar interests there. So if we can kind of pair a couple of the girls with similar interests together, then that's a really cool opportunity. So be looking for opportunities to do that. Kind of, or if you notice that 2 of your kids really like the drums, trying to have them pair together. Yeah, sorry, you guys can shut the windows now. I'm not so freaking out. Okay.
Socialization as well. Make sure you're modeling this behavior. Now, you don't have to interact with each other like you expect the kids to, but have a positive interaction with each other as well. Don't joke around and sarcasm and buddy hitting each other
That's a good.
Because you don't want them to do that. So make sure you're modeling what you expect too.
And I hate Pinterest has been around for a while. I just hit myself in the head. But there's a lot of stuff. If you're not really sure what to do, you could ask, obviously, Leah or Kirsty or Ashley. But if you want to kind of get some ideas, there's about 3 million socialization boards. If you're a Pinterest person and you're kind of, not doing what you're supposed to be and procrastinating doing something, it wouldn't be a bad idea to like see if something there might
Yeah.
work for you or give you an idea or spark some interest. Because I look at them all the time and there's lots of great ideas.
It doesn't have to be anything
That you come up with.
extravagant. It can be very simple, you know. In the past too, for socialization, we've had some more inappropriate social behaviors going on. We've had a kid in the red group who had a really strong crush on a girl in the red group, and that's very age appropriate, really. I mean, he's 13, 14.
It's like 18.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's
He had a crush on one of the girls in his group, and it was hard for him to focus on anything besides her. It made her uncomfortable, as is also age appropriate when you don't like someone back, and all of that. So we didn't so much encourage socialization with them in the way that we're talking about here, but we encouraged more appropriate socialization between them. So not to say that they couldn't speak to one another or that we separated them or anything like that, but kind of talking with her like, hey, I know he's sort of bugging you a little bit, so maybe you should try to stand away from him during the activities. And is it okay if at the end of Prison Project he gives you a high five? Does that bother you? No, that doesn't bother me. Okay, and then going back and talking to the boy like, hey, she needs her space. We're going to let her hang out with the rest of her friends, but when Prison Project is over, you can go talk to her and give her a high five. And encouraging it in an appropriate manner that way. So, again, you never know what you're going to run into, but that gives you another example of a different type of socialization that we tried to encourage than just forcing kids to hang out together. Promoting independence. We have done awesome at this at Prison Project the last couple of years, more so than I think the earlier years. These kids don't get to do a lot on their own. And really, that's the goal. We don't want you to really hand over hand play the drums with them. We want them to learn that skill. We want them to be comfortable in that skill. We want them to be able to perform it the night of. It might not be as doable in the early rehearsals to have so much independence, but you all should keep that as a goal in mind, Ideally, at the show, you're not there with them. You're kind of in the background, or you're kind of standing a couple feet behind them, something like that. We want them to be independent. So reducing the amount of physical and verbal prompts as appropriate is a good idea.
We can talk about that a little bit more after we
Yeah.
get into it, because
If they're starting to get the hang of something, you don't need to keep cueing them to do it, basically. That's the take-home message. Importance of socialization and independence. It's an extracurricular activity. We've hit on that. It's a social event for our kids. Sometimes these kids do have pre-existing relationships from working together in the past, and they don't get to see each other that often. So it's a good time for them to get to hang out with their friends. It's a creative project. It does not have to be perfect. If your kid is, 2 beats behind everybody else, it's really okay. It really is.
and Ryan didn't say this at the beginning, but really one of the missions of Prison Projects is is for kids to have access to the arts, and that's what we want to do. So when she says it's a creative project, we want them to have the chance to experience this, and then the kids that keep coming back, they get better at it every year. But if they don't have a chance to try it themselves or do it themselves, they're not going to be able to progress. So for us, it's all about the process. It's not about the product. And when you get to be at the performance and you see all that and see that nobody in the audience cares if they're 2 beats behind, their parents don't care, just to see that they're participating independently or as independently as possible, as Ashley said, it's overwhelming to parents. as a quick example, both of our sons are in it, and my youngest, I don't remember how many years ago we did it. There was something where the kids just went up to the microphone and said their name, and my whole family was just sobbing. I mean, he didn't even do anything musical. He just went up and said his name. But I had seen him do it several times, but it is overwhelming to see your child succeed at something that is not, we don't see it very often. So it doesn't have to be perfect. That's all I wanted to say. I'm gonna cry again. it's you'll see. You'll
And
see.
Parents want to watch their kids perform, not you. So that's the other thing too.
They like you.
Yes.
They like you and all, but they're there to see their kids. So if you can fade yourself out as much as possible, and their kids can do it on their own, give them that opportunity. They deserve that.
I have something to add to that. And like for performance night, like maybe talk to the parents about where they're sitting. Because last year I had Kobe in like the first dance. All he wanted to know was where his mom was. So I texted her. I was like, "Hey, where are you?" So then I found her, and then he found her, and then it's like his whole performance changed. Like he
That's a
saw his
very
mom,
good
and that's
idea.
all that's what he was focused on.
Yeah, Cameron Hostman usually does that.
Yep.
He usually can't. Yeah, he can't focus till he sees them.
He's
He's
like,
like,
"Hey, you're out there."
Cameron's coming back.
Because they love each other so much.
Can I say my 2 cents?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, everything needs to be very independent. I feel like that's something that a few years ago, that's when I started doing this. That was my huge push, was to really get the kids doing it as much as by themselves as much as possible, doing modeling in front of them rather than behind them and things like that. And I think that has been very successful. The flip side to that is you don't want your kid to be the only one running around on the stage.
Right.
Okay, so some of these parents are going to see 12 kids doing it right and one kid not. And even though we all know they have exceptionalities and it's okay for us, to them, they would still like them to somehow be involved.
Oh, yes.
So that's also a hard thing. And the performance is, oh gosh, they could do great here and bad there. They could do bad here and great there. So
Never know.
you're not going to know that. But we could discuss with that, what our goal is for that, the night of the performance. Plus, you don't want to see a kid have a behavior on the stage because
Right.
no parent wants to see that as well. So there are some fine lines there. And there are some parents who don't want you to touch their kid. They would rather the kid not be on the stage if they're having a behavior. They don't want the extra help and stuff. So we'll help you work through those kind of kinks too. But it is difficult. It's difficult because especially when I have a student there and I'm like, I knew he could be doing that. He's just wandering on the stage. And yes, he's experiencing it and I'm all about that. But I also know that they could do more. And you don't want the parent to think that too the day of, like, oh, is that all he did at Prison Project? And you know that they did more. So with some of those kids, we'll kind of have to help you.
And that's what we talked about a couple of minutes ago too. Is like in the beginning, you might need more cueing.
Yeah,
You
right.
might need more prompting. You might need more hand over hand and more guidance. But as a goal, keep in the back of your mind, the less that you're needed, the better.
And practicing it here is what's going to make them be able to do it on the stage.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and lots of things can happen between now and the actual performance too. That they could start off. Some kids might have a growth spurt in the middle, and suddenly things they were doing before, their hormones are saying, "Blah," and they're not doing the same thing. Or they could have a medication change, or whatever it is. So you are going to have to possibly do maybe lots of cueing at the beginning, not do cueing again because they're having a hard time. It's going to be something,
To monitor.
to monitor, and that you're going to have to judge as you go.
And I guess the other thing is don't feel like you have to do what your buddies, your all
Peers,
state
yeah.
peers are doing. If you think you need to be in front of the kid and nobody else is in front,
That's-
who cares?
That's
And that-
totally fine.
You're just gonna have to. It's not gonna work for everybody the same. And I think you guys will hopefully feel comfortable with that, with the leaders saying that too. You're gonna have to ask, is it okay that I'm in front? Are you gonna be modeling this? Are you not gonna be modeling this? And the night of the performance, that may be okay. We know to put you on the end instead of in the middle. You guys are really gonna, I think, lead a lot of how the performance goes too, as the Ball State buddies, because you know the kid and what they need to be as independent.
The leaders too. Sometimes that's important. point will lead the whole group. And like Leah's saying, if your kid doesn't respond to a whole group instruction as well as one-on-one instruction, that's okay. So maybe your goal to promote independence is, I'm not going to do hand over hand prompting. I'm going to model in front of the kid. Where maybe someone else's goal is, I'm going to try to be off stage, you know? So it is very individualized. We just want to promote their level of independence. Questions about that? Okay. Things to avoid, we'll go through this pretty quickly. Negative statements, this is hard, I think, because that's our tendency. If you haven't worked with kids before, you typically start saying, don't do that, stop doing that, stop running. Our kids don't respond as well to that as telling them what to do. So it's important to tell people what to do instead of what not to do. So that's really the negative statements where that comes from. You don't want your kid to be dependent on you. We've had that before too. That goes back to promoting independence, where we've had a kid totally shut down because their buddy wasn't there to help them with it. Well, we want them to be independent in that. Avoid isolating. You and your buddy, you guys might have an awesome relationship and be having a great time, but we want them to interact with peers. That's one of the goals of Prison Project. So try not to keep you and your buddy in your little bubble and not join the group.
And with that too, this is a little bit off of that, but to protect yourself and the kids, like if a kid is having a meltdown and you need to take them out in the hallway, make sure that you're somewhere where other people can see you. If you need to take a kid to the bathroom,
Yeah.
there's stalls there, open the bathroom door, stand out in the hallway and wait for them to like do their stuff. Don't ever put yourself in a compromising situation where it's just you and the kid and no one else is there.
Try not to avoid activities. Some kids might not like everything that you do, but at least try to get them to engage in it. Show them how fun it is, all of that. Don't reinforce inappropriate behaviors. We talked about that earlier. Don't tell the kid that's not doing anything productive that he's doing a great job, because that's going to have him continue to do that. Try not to be bossy or too laid back. We've had Ball State students that have done both, and it makes for a really long semester. Just don't do that. I don't have anything else to say about that. And don't be boring. Just do the right thing. You're here because you want to be here. I don't think any of you have to be here. I don't know.
You do.
I have to.
So do Leah and Kirsty.
But you're here for a reason. I hope it's more than just something to put down on a resume, because you'll get more out of it than that. So be enthusiastic. Don't be boring or bossy or anything.
How do you not be boring? I mean, like, if you have never done it before, maybe when we're going to do another game, but maybe you could talk about, like, what to do to not be boring, or people could throw out ideas of what, because that's kind of, it's a big, like, when you guys talk about having a party, I don't know if everybody knows what that means, so maybe you guys could talk about that, because I think that's a really, really valuable tool to know what to do, and I learned it from somebody who worked at camp and told me how to do it, and I did it the next day. I was like, wow, this is amazing, but I didn't know, so maybe we could talk about that after we do.
I just think just really quick with that, it's just forgetting about social stigmas and like, oh, I'm gonna look really stupid if I do this. Like my peers if everyone's doing it, if every single person in this room is acting stupid, then we're all doing it together and we're having a great time. It doesn't matter. These kids don't have those. They don't understand if the embarrassment that we may feel, they don't care. If we're having a good time, then they're gonna have a good time.
And it's not really about you. I mean, it's really not about if you feel embarrassed or if you feel uncomfortable. I'm just going to say that. I'm an introvert. I hate being up here talking to all of you right now. It's way out of my comfort zone, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do.
You do.
Yeah.
And you're not boring.
I was just going to add that the kids will really feed off of your energy. So if
Oh,
you
yeah.
say, I mean, these kids will like look up to you, So if you say, I am so excited to go on this treadmill. Man, I'm excited to be an elephant today. What are you gonna be? You know, they're like, I'm gonna be a dog. You know, and then you get a pretend leash. You know. Okay, so if you act like you don't want to be anywhere else. I know it's Saturday and you might be sleepy from Friday night or whatever, but like, channel that energy, rally, tell the kids that you're excited,
That's a good one.
and they'll feed off of that, and they'll get
That
excited
is
too.
true.
Perfect. Yeah.
That is a great example.
Yeah, you can
And
be
don't
very
look
involved.
at your friend and be like, I cannot believe they're making me walk around like a freaking elephant. I am too hungover for this. I don't want to do this right now. Don't do that with your kids.
That is boring.
That is boring. So if you think it's a dumb idea, and you might think it's a dumb idea, our directors are awesome. I think they come up with great stuff. But you might think that whatever they want you to do is stupid. You do not put on that face.
You
Put
pretend.
on the face.
What is it that you do when you're an actor? You commit. I am not an actor, but that was what I was told.
Yeah.
It was Acting 101 by David Martin last year. He said, I said, David, I don't know how to do this. He said, commit to what you're going to do and follow through. So we
I
are
like
going to all make butts out of ourselves. I think we should practice making butts out of ourselves, and we might be doing that soon. Are we doing that?
you
Okay. Are we?
Great.
So I think we're going to transition
Great
back
for
to
me.
Taylor's in charge.
All right. So let me just tell you before we all get up. I heard someone say, "I need to know your names" after climbing through everyone's arms 6 times. So that's what we're gonna do now. We're gonna learn each other's names before we do the weird, crazy stuff. So this is another everybody stands in a big circle thing. So everybody up.
We need to move some chairs. Oh, I need to turn this off. This is going to die before we're finished.
Before, but I think once you can attach it to some experience, it really makes a lot more sense hearing it the second time around. So if you are new this year and you plan to come back next year, it might make more sense then. If you have no prior knowledge, then we'll help you. We do have some behaviors in Prison Project. It just comes with the territory. We're here to support you 100%. If there's anything that you come across that you're not sure how to handle or makes you uncomfortable, or you're not sure if it's really a way that it should be handled at Prison Project, you know, maybe you've worked at camp before and, you know, your goal there was to manage behaviors or change behaviors, and now you're here and you're not exactly sure what approach to take, or I don't know. We're here to support you. I find still, I've been out of school now for 3 years, and I find that I encounter things all the time that I have to bounce ideas off of other people because I don't know what to do. You know, you have to work with each other to figure out the best way to handle it. So please, 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 even if it's something stupid, like your kid keeps picking their nose and it makes them not participate in music, let us know and we'll try to help you with that. If it's something on a bigger scale than that, we want to be there to help you. Behaviors, I think behavior is kind of a scary word. It can be something big, it can be something small. We want you to try to redirect to an appropriate behavior. I think redirecting is really the best outcome. It doesn't always work, but if we can redirect, I think that that's the best thing to do. So if you can get them away from whatever behavior they're having by guiding them in another direction, that's the best outcome we could ask for, I think. Do you guys agree with that? Yeah. So I would say, if we're really breaking it down, that's your go-to. If I'm seeing that my buddy is not doing something that I want them to do, I want to try to redirect them in a different way. And I really think that as a team, we want to say redirect in a positive way. You know, it's not always possible, but that's our goal. So what I mean by that is, let's say you have a kid who's zoned out, you know, and you want them to be engaged with the theater activity. If they're zoned out, you want to try to bring them in by showing them how much fun it is and all of that. And you want to just try to bring them back to the group. That would be the first way, showing them that it's fun, giving them positive directions, encouraging them when they do even the smallest amount of participating. You also sometimes have to redirect by using hand-over-hand approach, but I would say, again, if we're looking at kind of our flow chart of what to do, you want to try to redirect by being positive and showing them that it's fun. And then if we have to opt to some more hand-over-hand types of things, then we can. But we also, it's a fine line. We're not really covered to do a lot of physical prompting, You guys are students. You'll find in your career that you have to protect yourself. And if you don't know what you're doing, you shouldn't put the student's safety at risk either. So physical prompting is sometimes necessary, and it's not always aggressive, but that's a fine line. Do you have a better way of explaining that?
I think that for an example, we have a little adorable boy. His name is Jackson. And he has got a lot on his mind. And he wants to participate, but he's got all this stuff going on. And so for him, sometimes redirecting just means kind of pushing his hand, not hurting him, just kind of saying, hey, this is what we're doing. You got to get out of whatever you're thinking of over here and get back to what we're doing. That can be a hand over hand, just kind of nudging him back. The difference is, too, when we had somebody who's trying to break something, that you might have to remove their arm or stand in between them so they don't hurt someone else.
I would say this year blocking is probably going to be the better choice. So put yourself between, and then ultimately, if it's a big thing, everybody's just going to have to leave the room, and the kid's going to stay with their buddy and hopefully one of us. And it's going to be. I would say this year is going to be different though with assisting.
It's going to be different for a lot of reasons. I think Leah, I didn't know this, but said that there's some new state regulations as far as physical restraints, and I'm not even covered to do a lot of that. So there's some tricky guidelines. Some of you in the past have seen us be maybe a little bit more aggressive with our behavior management. And safety is always first. If that's what we have to resort to, then that's what we have to resort to. I'm not going to stand up here and say that you're not going to see that and say that everything's all sunshiny, because it may not be. But I think that, again, when we think about that flow chart of how we're going to manage some of these behaviors, that's kind of a last resort. Would you agree, Leah?
Yeah, and that's why, Ashley's done such a good job with this of telling you guys just so many other options to do that. It's always easier just to grab them and do it, or pull them, or, just make them do it, or the hand over hand. But if you try all the other things first, it'll work better anyway. I mean, the research shows you that.
Yeah.
Reinforcing the good behavior, they're going to just continue to do it. You can't help it. It's just in us. That's just who we are. We're conditioned to be like that. And it's going to be, she'll talk about the pivoting, giving other people attention. Well, of course we want attention. We're humans. That's what we like, Those other things, but it'll help a lot more. Plus, most of you probably don't like to be touched, and they're the same way. They don't want to be touched either, and it gets into your space, and it's difficult because in my classroom, it's very hands-on, and it's a behavior class. So that's why I like coming to Prison Project too, because you do get to do it a little bit more in a fun way, and the outcome isn't to shape behavior. So, that's probably going to be one of the things. And my hope for this year is that you guys just feel so comfortable talking to each other. It's going to be huge, and talking to your leaders, because it's different every year, but if the kid just wants the bigger drum, I'm guessing it's okay just to give them the bigger drum. We're not teaching to follow rules. That's not, like they said, it's experiencing. Are they always going to be able to have a big drum? No, because 2 kids want it. That's when we're going to figure out another redirection. Then, okay, you can have the big drum now, but you can have it later. If they still don't want to participate, then maybe they can do something else for a little bit, because, again, it's supposed to be a positive experience, and we want them to be involved. And I think that's going to make your lives a lot easier. It's going to make it a lot easier, because they're not getting away with not participating. They're not. They're not. We just can't think about it that way, and I think that'll make you have
yeah.
a better time.
And if you haven't been a part of Prison Project before, maybe you haven't seen some of those types of things that we're speaking to. So, you know, we're not going to harp on that all day, but we have had situations before where it's hard. I mean, Leah said it earlier. She has kids in her class, and she's like, I know that they can do more when they participate in Prison Project. There's kids that I know here, and I see them acting out, and I'm thinking, I know they can do more, and they're not getting away with this on my watch. But it's not what it's about. We're not here to shape their behaviors. We're not here to change them. We couldn't if we wanted to, even if that was the goal. In 2 hours a week, you're just not going to be able to accomplish that.
If you are, it's going to be doing it the positive way anyway.
Yes,
So
that's a good point. So this is kind of your bag of tricks here. Redirect to an appropriate behavior, reinforce a positive behavior. Again, like I said, anything small that is positive, somewhat of what you want them to do. That's what you need to hit.
can I say something? The redirect, because I was trying to come up with one too. So say they're like nudging somebody or hitting somebody. A redirect would be give me high fives. Does that make sense? So you're self-fulfilling, maybe with something that they wanted, some input or something, but they're giving you high fives instead. Does that
It's
make
more
sense?
appropriate than
Yeah, nudging someone or
that's a good example. Giving choices, but only providing acceptable choices. We've talked enough about that. Pivoting, which we're going to spend some more time talking about. Hand over hand, which again, like Amy was saying, it can be just sort of a prompt, you know, or they're playing the drum, but they're not quite on beat, and so you want to have them be hand over hand with you to get more on the same beat.
And I might help this year with some hand underhand. I know it's not, it's just a little bit of a different approach for more like people who are anxious or don't know how to participate, and it makes it more like you're doing it, but they're just participating with you. The kid has to be more aware to be able to do that. You know, the hand over hand, sometimes it's the kids that don't really know what they're supposed to be doing, but hopefully we can try some of that this year too. Which
We
might make
really
you more
just want to
comfortable.
take a positive approach.
And with that, a lot of you probably know what hand over hand is, but just in case, it's literally like my hand is over her hand and helping her do it. Now, hand under hand is where she's saying that she's doing it, but just so you know, your hands are on the child or you're touching them in some way to help them participate.
Replacing the behavior with something more appropriate, that kind of goes back to what Leah says. If they're nudging, give me high fives, or if they're banging on the drum and it's really loud and distracting, maybe having them clap your hands, squeeze your hands, something like that. Some of the kids will have some fidget types of things. Some kids use gum. Thinking of Kobe, and he has a whole
He has a whole-
crap that I don't even know.
Oh,
what
his
it
new
is.
thing's the dictionary. He'll give you a piece of a dictionary with the word on it.
Oh.
We should
Very
make
cool.
a project out of that.
Very cool.
A collage.
Yeah.
Andrew, does he still use Slinkies much?
Sadly, yes.
Yes. Andrew
no,
uses
some
Slinkies.
kids-
And some kids just like to come up and squeeze your hands too, like Spencer. Sometimes
Yeah.
he likes to have that touch.
So, replacing it with something more appropriate. And then offering breaks. That's a big one that we haven't really hit on before, but we're going to do that now.
Oh, babies.
What?
He said, oh.
When you're setting breaks, you need to know that sometimes these kids, prison project's 2 hours long?
No, an hour and a half.
An hour and a half?
We changed that. We used to have a break. We used to have a
Snack break. An hour and a half is a long time sometimes, and these kids might not have it in them to go for an hour and a half. So I think breaks are okay. I mean, it's a fine line. You don't want a kid that every 30 seconds is saying, I need a break, and it becomes distracting, and they're not really engaging, and then other kids are wanting breaks. So it's a really fine line. Again, we can help you with that. I can't give you a formula for what a break will look like for your buddy. Some examples, though, we use a timer. We can take a 1-minute break. Specify a location. That will burn you if you say, yeah, we can take a break, and then they book it out the door, and you're like, well, not in the hallway.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't say that, so you're kind of stuck with that now.
Right.
And now
Sometimes
you're out in the hallway by yourself with your buddy, and that's, again, not a really safe thing to do.
Yeah, and the break could just be a break from participating.
Right. A break can not be a physical break, but just, you can sit here and take a break. Make sure you let your leaders know that your kid is on a break so that they don't see them sitting there and say, come on, and try to encourage them, because that's their time and they deserve that time if you've offered it to them. Specify an activity. We can get one drink of water and then go back to the group. Be careful with water and bathroom breaks, because you will spend your whole time in the bathroom. I spent an entire summer in a bathroom one time. So be careful. You don't want to do that. Use breaks as a reward when you're able to. Sometimes you'll just see that your kid's starting to get worked up, and before they hit that peak level where they are really worked up, you can say to them, hey, do you need a break? And just take that time before they really escalate. But other times, if you have a kid that's not really escalating, you can say, okay, after the drums are over, you can take a break, and use it sort of as a reward, giving them something to work towards again, like we talked about earlier. When kids are on a break, they're on a break. They need to be left alone, not to be rude, but I needed a break after I just stood up here and talked to you guys. I did not want to go play, icebreaker games. So I want a break. I want to sit there and I want to do what I want to do. I don't want to get up and play icebreakers. Your buddy might not want to talk to you and hang out with you during their break, and that's okay, because it's their time. And avoid overusing. It's a fine line. We'll help you through that as you get to it. Any questions about that? You can add timers. Can be really beneficial with that. And a break can be like 30 seconds. I mean, you don't always have to set a timer, but you can just, or a break can be also, to go back to Andrew, maybe you don't want him to have a slinky during the whole time because you don't want someone to lose an eye during the activity. Although I have not really ever seen him hit anybody, which is insane, but it looks terrifying. But a break could be, you're not going to have the slinky during music. I'm going to have it. And he starts participating, and you say, do you want to break with your slinky? And you give him the slinky, and he can do his slinky thing for a while, and then you say, okay, my turn, and take it back. It can be 30 seconds. So a break can be doing nothing or doing something preferred, I guess, is the bottom line. Pivoting. This is something that Prism Project needs to get better at. I've worked at summer camps before, and you survive by your counselors, because without them, you cannot survive day to day. And your Prism Project buddy peers should be the same way. So you guys should not be able to survive without one another, and you guys should help each other out. Communication is a huge factor in that, but if you see that your peer is having trouble getting one of their kids to participate, and they're over there spinning their wheels, and your kid's sitting there just smiling and doing everything, don't say, like, Adria's a short straw today. That's not cool. You need to help them out. So what you should be doing is saying to, the group, hey, so-and-so's over there, and they're freaking out. Let's make this look like this is the funnest thing that they could ever be doing in their life. And you guys amp up the energy. And this goes back to, you're going to feel like an idiot because it's silly, And you make it look like what the group is doing is the funnest thing that could possibly be going on. And then maybe Erica's off to the side with her buddy, and he kind of looks up like, hey, what are they doing over there? And he starts inching towards it. And she says, oh, you're getting closer to the group. I like that. When they finally get into the group, you guys are like, oh, hey, Joey, it's awesome to see you, blah, blah, blah. Like, we are so glad you're back. And really reinforce when he's participating. She can't do it alone, It's going to take the whole group effort. Now, I will tag a line onto that and make sure that you are doing what their buddy wants you to do. Because I've had situations before where I've, drug a kid back to reality, and it's been this horrible process, and they've kicked and screamed the whole time. And I'm hand over hand doing everything with them, and I get them to the group, and everyone's like, "You're making awesome choices.
Yeah.
This is wonderful." I'm like, "No, they're not." So make sure that you guys kind of silently communicate, like, "Hey, when he gets back, I need you guys to really amp it up." And you might not be able to do that perfectly with every situation, but that's when it's going to be really important before and after your sessions to sort of regroup with one another and say, "Hey, Joey really likes it when you guys are excited about him coming back. If you guys could help me out with that, that's going to be a good thing." And maybe one day you'll draw the short straw and they'll help you out too. So that's really important. We're going to practice that actually. So I need some volunteers. I hate this stuff. I know you guys do too. I was asked to.
I'll be one.
Okay. Okay, 2.
I got it.
Yay.
Come on, I might as well just stand up.
I wish I had candy to give you guys. Candy really makes everything better. Okay, let's say thank you. Can I have one more maybe? Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
Connor.
So, who wants to be the kid?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you're over here and you're, being less than desirable. Who wants to be your buddy? Your buddy. Okay, there we go. Okay, you guys are the group. So they're over here and they're playing drums. And it's awesome and they're doing a great job. I always go back to playing the drums because that's pretty much the only instrument that I even know. Sorry if that seems like a boring example at this point. So they're playing the drums, they're doing everything, and Riley's over there, and she's like totally not caring about anything other than whatever's going on in her head. And Connor's over there dying. He's like, "Gosh, we've been sitting over here forever. I don't want to keep being over here. This is awful." He drew the short straw today. So, let's say Erica is a buddy, and you're one of the other kids in the group, and you're a buddy. Okay? So you're playing the drums. You're our all-star student. Look at him go! We love what he's doing. He's playing the drums, and he's smiling, and it's awesome. But Riley doesn't care about him. She's not even noticing him, so we've got to really bring it to life. So what are you guys going to say to encourage her to come back? This is Adam. I read his name tag. I'm just kidding. Like, cool. Yeah. Well, you're one of my kind.
Man,
So,
look at Adam. He's
Look
doing
at,
so great at the drums. Nice job, Adam.
and so that's
Woo!
so cute. Connor's like, "Help me out." I'm like dragging her around. I'm so tired. Help a brother out. And you guys are like, "Oh, okay. Nice job." And I'm the leader. I'm the music leader, and I'm like, "Everyone, stop what you're doing. You're about to see something so awesome." And everyone's like, and Riley's looking at me. Look, she's looking at me.
For real.
She didn't even know she was supposed to be looking at me. But I'm like, everyone look. Adam is playing the drums, and that's when all of you guys are like, "Yeah!" That sucks. Ready?
Gonna go the other way.
I'm gonna say, everyone look. Adam is playing the drums. He's being a good listener. You are so awesome. I love what you're doing. And look at Riley. She's getting closer. She's getting closer. Everyone watch again. Adam's gonna do it again. Watch. Whoa! That's awesome. Here comes Riley. Hey, Riley! Hey, everyone, take a look. Riley's gonna play the drums now. This is awesome. Watch her go. And that's how you pivot, okay? So, Riley is that way over here because she knew it was awesome. And it works. It really does work.
I know. The leaders are back. This is the important one for you guys that your lesson might stop. in order to get a kid to re-engage too.
Yes, so
Which
we'll
you
do
guys
it
will.
again. We'll have buddies. We'll have leaders be volunteers this time.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. You're wonderful.
Very nice, very nice.
You're gonna be acting.
Oh,
That's what happens when you're a leader.
Yeah. We're talking about pivoting to bring you guys up to speed on what we're doing.
I hope they can.
So we're talking about if you have a kid in the group who is not engaged with what the group is doing, who's not engaged with what the group is doing, your peers might send out an SOS like, hey, I'm over here, I'm struggling, I don't know what to do with my kid, and so that's your cue as a group and as a leader that we've got to pivot. We have to make it look like what you guys are doing is an awesome thing in the entire world so that they want to come and they want to join. A couple of key points again are, once you have to be enthusiastic, you have to make it fun, and once the kid who has separated himself joins the group, then that's when you have to really reinforce them so that they stay engaged. So,
Can I say something from us, from the leaders to you guys, is we want you to tell us what's going on. Like, if
Right.
something's happened in the last class, we won't be able to know. So, like, come up and tell us. We want to be able to communicate with you guys
Right.
as much as possible.
and again, you have to communicate with your leaders too, because if you want them to ignore what your kid is doing because your kid really doesn't deserve
Give
any
us-
attention right now, you have to let them know, because if they don't know, they might blow your whole game that you're playing. You know, they might come over there and say like, "You're doing so awesome. I really want you to play music," and you're like, "Shut up." Anything that they're
We need a signal.
yeah. Code word.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have. Who wants to be the kid?
Zach.
Yes.
What am I doing?
You're sitting there and not doing anything because you're not doing anything that you want to do.
It's
And who wants to be his buddy?
Sam, be my buddy. I'll be his buddy.
And
never noticed it.
you guys are. We'll do 2 kids and 2 buddies. So Tara.
You didn't know me, Tim.
Okay.
You want to switch?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
see, we're different sections.
So you guys are in theater and you're doing some imitation types of things. So imitate each other. I don't know. Do something. Animals. Yeah. Animals.
What is your favorite animal?
Okay, so they're engaged, they're having fun. He doesn't care.
They like it.
They're engaged. He's like, whatever, I'm so tired, I really wish I could take a nap. And Sam says,
Thank you for being with the group, but also we can still play games.
and he's like, that doesn't do it for me. So you guys hear Sam say, look how much fun they're having. That's your cue. That's your cue that Sam needs help because he does not have the wits about him to convince him to get to the group as much as what you all can. So I'm the leader and I'm going to say, look at these animals. This is awesome. You're an elephant, aren't you? That's so cool. And we're going to get really excited. Awesome. Taylor, I want you to stand up and do that for the whole group. Look how cool she is. You guys didn't even notice, but he sat up and he was smiling. He was watching.
Way to go.
And Sam says,
Good job, Zach. Thank you for joining the group, and you're a great animal.
yes, and you guys all say,
Yeah,
welcome back, Zach! Welcome back! You get excited. They threw a better party than you guys.
You should give him a second chance.
But you did a good job.
Well,
It's already been a lot.
You felt good about that?
okay, too much.
So, you guys just saw Zach and Riley were trying to be unengaged, and when we started having fun up here, they were engaged, even though they didn't know. You can use this on your roommates and on your friends
And your children.
Yeah. So it works, you know. When you're doing the dishes, you're like, this soap smells awesome. I can't wait to get all this done.
I know it's really awesome.
It works for you. Try it out. It works. physical prompting this year, this is our lifeline. This absolutely does not work if your whole group is not on board. It doesn't work at all. If your leader's not on board, it doesn't work. And if your leaders don't know, then they can't help you. If your peers don't know, then they can't help you. You guys have to communicate with this, or else it doesn't work. It works wonderfully, and you guys, when the kid comes back and joins the group, you won't even have to fake throw a party because you'll be like, yes, I won. Awesome.
I think the important part about this is we have decided as leadership that this is what's going to happen. So the lesson is going to stop for this. And the leaders are aware of that, so if we don't get through as much, because the ultimate goal is that everyone's having a good time. The other kids are still having a good time. They're still playing the drums. They're still doing stuff. They're getting praised over the top. You know, they're still having a really good time. So don't feel bad. Don't act like you're interrupting something, because your whole goal is for them to be having a good time. And
That's
everyone's having a
important.
good time.
And being someone that has been in a former leadership position, not with Prison Project, but just with other things, when one kid is disengaged, it's really distracting to you as a leader anyway. And it makes you feel kind of like, dang it, I got half the group, but not the other half. And so you want everybody to be engaged. So I think you guys would, second that if maybe we don't get through, A, B, and C that was on your to-do list, but the whole group had a good time and nobody was crying and freaking out the whole time, you're going to still chalk it up as a successful session. So.
And the lesson can keep going, because they're going to keep doing, she's going to do the next thing. Okay, you guys act like an animal. Now I want you to be a tree. Now I want you to be that. It's still going to keep going. You don't have to stick to the animal because they're being defiant during that part. It's going to keep progressing. And then the leaders, hopefully you guys will feel comfortable talking to them and say, last time they really liked that really big drum. So wink, wink, can you pull that out real quick?
Yeah.
And then maybe they'll come and join and that's going to be a first then. They come back and they're like, oh, I get the drum now. No, you don't. Play with that little drum and then you can play with the big drum. And so, but those are just the nice, you guys will feel so much better about yourself. The kids will feel so much better about themselves because it all is just fun and they feel like they're winning when really you won. I mean, they basically did what you said. But it takes practice. It's not going to happen the first few times. The party's not always going to work,
yeah, sometimes you'll throw the most awesome party that you've ever thrown in your life, and the kids still like, I really want to take a nap right now. I'm really still in SpongeBob world, and I have to what you're doing. But that is the example. Does anyone have any questions?
We'll keep practicing. And you can do it. You can do that one side by side. I mean, the kid next. It doesn't have to be big like that.
It doesn't have to be a big production.
Yeah.
That's a good
pivoting. I mean,
too.
Exactly like baseball, turning side to side or whatever. Yeah.
Erica.
Do we have the twins, Nicholas and?
Nicholas and Noah.
Because I know, especially in the green group, they're really good at like cheering everybody else on.
And they model what we expect.
Yeah, they do model really well.
That's a good point that Erica brings up too. You will have star students in your group, and you will have a kid that pretty much does everything that they are asked to do, and they pretty much have fun and like everything that they're doing. So use those kids as your pivot point. You find out who those leaders are, and then praise them. Say, you are such a good leader. The other kids really look to you to find out what to do. That's a great tool for the red group, because a lot of times these kids aren't given opportunities to be leaders, and it's cool to be able to do that.
The pivoting will work too if you're, if the kid's compliant, he's sitting in front of the drum, but he's not doing it, and it could be for any reason. I'm anxious, I don't know, I don't think I'm going to do it right, I just don't want to, whatever. And they're going to really love you as their buddy. And you turn and you talk to the kids on both sides of you, that's pivoting too, because they're like, hey, why aren't they talking to me? Whatever, and then you're like, if they turn around, you're like, oh, he's playing the drums, and I really love how he's playing the drums, and he's trying his hardest, and do you know how to play this song? Oh, you don't know how to play the song? Some of the kids you'll be able to have this conversation with. And they'll say, yeah, I didn't really know how to play, but I'm trying, and then you come back, or, do you want to try? So pivoting is also just, the left and right, you're just basically
pivot your attention, like he is saying. So if your kid really loves hanging out with you and they want your attention, give your attention to someone who's doing the right thing. Or if it's not your buddy and they really love you, we ran into that situation before too. Like I might be Joey's buddy, and he's so tired of me because we've been hanging out with him for the past 3 weeks, and we're not really always hitting it off. But he really likes Sam, you know. Sam, he thinks is super cool. Well, maybe it doesn't make sense for whatever reason for us to switch and Sam to be his buddy, but maybe Sam can give Joey attention when he's doing the appropriate thing and say, Joey, I see you playing that drum. That's awesome. Or I can say, hey, Sam, look at Joey. Help me out. And he can look over and he can give that attention. That's a good point. It doesn't have to be this big thing, but sometimes it needs to be big. Sometimes it does.
And sometimes the kids will do it too. If there are two of the kids that are friends, and if the kid that is not doing what they're supposed to be doing is sick of the adults telling them what to do, sometimes if you know that friend is a friend with your buddy, then you can say, hey, like, so-and-so doesn't look to be having very much fun being animals. Do we want to go be animals with them?
Yeah.
And then so-and-so come over and say, like, I'm being a cat. Do you want to be a cat with me? And sometimes that'll kind of get them, because then it's so much more play with someone on their level than it is
socialization.
the adult. Yeah, and then we're building those social skills.
I think that happened, Adam, didn't that happen last year with Luke? Some of the kids were like, hey, you need to be over.
They tried to.
Yeah, it didn't work every time, but it also.
But they were interested in trying to get him over there.
Yeah, and then they were working together as well.
Alex and Luke did it the year before.
Okay.
Alex and Luke were very good about, because they would act out sometimes together, and if we could get one of them to refocus, then the other one would see that and be like, oh, that's what Alex is doing, that's what Luke is doing now, and then they would focus on it.
Noah and Kobe did it last year.
Pivoting is really important. That's the moral of the story. If you have questions about that, please feel free to ask. You have to form some kind of bond with your group, because if not, you can't do this alone. Thank you. Thank you, other volunteers. This is our last slide. Let's throw a party.
Well, we have one more really fun game that we've been waiting for. So after this, we're going to do the game, and then...
It's 3:30 for crying out.
Oh, my mercy. Okay.
Is that real?
Yeah, that's for real.
Oh.
Aggression. We've talked about this. I want to hit on this because I want you guys to know about the safety of it and the concern. We had a couple aggressive situations last year in particular, and we've had some in the past. Last year, it happened to be the night of the show, which was unfortunate, but we worked through it. When it gets aggressive, you should be calling us in 100%.
Probably, actually, at that point, you should probably stay with your person and have someone else go and get whoever it is. There's more than one person in the room that could go and find somebody.
If it gets aggressive, or if you anticipate that it could get aggressive and you're not sure, be proactive. Get us involved early. You know, we need to know about that. The big thing was safety. We don't want the child to hurt himself. We don't want any of you guys to get hurt, and we don't want any of our other kids to get hurt. That's the big goal. It's critical that you listen to our directions during that time. If we're not there right away and it becomes dangerous, the activity might just need to be over, and we just might need to separate, sometimes it's a lot easier to separate the group from the problem than it is to separate the problem from the group. So you might just have to say, leadership team, like, hey, we're going to move out into the hallway. Don't leave the person in there by themselves. I don't think that you would do that, but, make sure that no one is put in a dangerous situation. Or if someone has to go to the bathroom and you think that kid's having a rough day, take a friend with you, that kind of thing.
And don't ever leave the kid alone either. Like, if they're getting aggressive and the group leaves, but you need to get to one of the team members, don't ever let them be alone, because you never know what they might destroy or hurt themselves.
Or disappear.
Right.
Out into the building.
Hopefully we don't have a lot of these situations, but it's a possibility, so we need to talk about it. We did have a situation, like I said, backstage last year, and that's a very small area for those of you who have been backstage at Pruis. And I can remember looking at a couple of the Ball State students, and their kids were coming over and watching, you know, the behavior happen, and being genuinely concerned for that child's safety and saying, get them away. And the buddy saying, okay, come on, let's go over here. No, that's when you pick them up and you say, we gotta go, and you move them. Because sometimes we don't have a lot of time. You know, some of these kids are big kids. You know, they're 14, 15 years old, some of them. There's an 18, Tyler's 18. Not over that. They're strong. You know, they're a lot stronger than me. So you guys gotta have a little bit of sense of urgency when it comes to that. And it's not, hey, let's come over here. Don't worry about them anymore. It's get the heck out of there. Okay? And please understand, you might be coming down the hall and not have any idea that there's a situation going on. And if we flag you, if we tell you something, you need to really be mindful of that.
I want to throw something out there too. A couple of years ago, we had someone who was a volunteer, and the person they were working with had some aggressive behaviors, and some things had to be taken care of, and the child was safe, and the people helping the child were safe. And this person kind of stood there this person, this buddy, was frustrated because she didn't agree with what they were doing. If you don't agree, don't stand there. Walk away. The people that are going to be in charge of making sure this child is safe know what they're doing, and you don't have to agree. But standing there and making it more frustrating for them isn't helping anyone, so walk away.
Or if you're uncomfortable too.
Yeah, and you could be.
Please feel free that if what's going on makes you uncomfortable, you know, don't leave us stranded.
Find somebody
Just
else.
say like, hey, is it okay if I move on? And we'll tell you what we need, or if we need anything. We might say like, yeah, I'll go get Amy or whatever. And I think that at this point this year, rather than really get into some heated things, we're probably going to take the stand that parents will be called.
Oh
into
yeah,
those
yeah,
situations.
I think we're gonna do that now.
And so,
The only thing I can recommend is you're just gonna block. You know, if the hit's coming at you, if you think they're gonna pull your hair, you're just gonna block and get away. That's your ultimate goal, is just to block and get away, block and get away, block and get away. That's all I can tell you to do. I mean, really.
And sometimes sometimes on the days that those things happen, you can tell when they get there that something's not right. And that's another time to let everybody know, hey, you know, something's not going right. Mom said that they got in an argument before they got here. The child didn't sleep really well. That's a time, again, and we've talked about it a couple times, but can lead to something that's aggressive. Let everybody know, and that way we can keep an eye on you and your performer.
And with that, like when your parents and buddies get there, like ask your buddy, how are you doing today? Or their parent, like, how was so-and-so doing today? Because then you know if they've had a rough morning, or maybe they're having a really great day and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You'll pick up on the signs for sure. But I hope this year, you know, I don't know. I just hope if they scream at you or whatever, you just need to call someone right away. Just because it will just escalate.
And
past
don't
them.
react.
Yeah.
Just take it in stride. These are kids. They may say hurtful things to you. They don't mean it. They say things out of aggression, but if you're reactive, then the behavior is going to get worse.
And another point too is we're not only talking about just physical aggression with hitting. I mean, that is what we've been talking about. But when Leah was saying block, that's another important piece. We have had kids that have ran before. This building's big. It's scary if you would lose a kid. So if you see that maybe they're not aggressive, but they're trying to run out the door because they're upset, we really need to block that as well. And if they get out into the hallway for whatever, find your fastest runner and try to have them outrun them and block, because or block the stairways at the very least, something like that. We don't want kids to take off. We had a kid last year who, before they even got into the building for Prison Project, they ran off from their mom, and they were out in traffic, you know, on Riverside, and it's scary. And she came in and she said he took off, and we went out there to help her, but some kids do dart,
And that's a case where their safety. You're going to touch them. You're going to grab them. You're going to try and sit them down. I mean, you have to use some common sense. That you have, it's for their safety. You know that there's something is going to hurt them because they're getting away from you.
Yeah, please don't, if you see a kid playing in traffic, say like,
I'm not really
I'm not really.
You're over here
gonna get
cheering on the
sued.
person.
I
That's
don't think I'm
the
supposed to touch you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Please get them out of traffic.
And there's one more quick thing too. I know that I'm going to use the name. Luke last year he's a runner and he gets frustrated and he runs. So if you know that there's someone in your group that is a runner, if Luke is in the red group needs to come up with a plan.
Yeah.
When we're in the hallway or when, let's say Luke is really maybe not a big fan of music. When it comes to music time, you're going to watch, someone's going to sneak by this door, someone's going to sneak by that door, and because he's a big, you don't know Luke. Luke's a big guy. So we need to kind of let him know, too, that we know what he's up to. Sometimes that'll stop him, sometimes it won't, but it might give us enough time to get the fastest runner from the red group, to go get him. But that's another reason why we keep talking about communication and working with each other. Some kids, you as a group are going to have to come up with a plan. We are all here to help you come up with a plan, but it would be safer for him if we could all work together. And there's other kids that are going to be the same way, just maybe not as memorable as Adam running down the hallway.
And also use us because, like, if Zach is teaching, I'm at the door blocking Luke.
Oh, yeah.
So use the two of us. Like, I would know last year I had red grouping. Claire knew if Luke was in rare form, stay over this way. Don't let him get that close. So tell us and we can help as well.
Because they sometimes forget.
That's being proactive.
And something
It's a
else with
lot-
that is
yeah.
proximity. Think about your proximity. If your kid's a runner and he's having a good day, don't sit by the door. Sit far away from the door. You have more time to stop him.
Put a few chairs in front of the door. A tunnel.
Your day will be a lot less stressful if you don't have to chase after your buddy. That's the tips. So anything you can do to prevent that, you should.
I think something else to keep in mind, especially for new people, this all I'm sure sounds really scary, and the idea of being in theater and everything is going fine except for your buddy, and the idea of finding a way to control that. Keep in mind that we almost always have floats who are not sitting with one person or teaching, they're walking back and forth. So if you're having an issue and everyone else is fine and your thought is like, I need someone to go get Amy or I need someone to go get Ashley, but I can't leave and I can't ask somebody else to do it, keep in mind that there are going to be people who aren't going to be with a buddy that day that are going to be walking around. You can say like, hey, I need Ashley. So
We
have
know
to
there's
other
42 kids this year, so we might
Well,
have a lot of
but we have several people that can't be there every week and are going to come in as that extra person. And I've encouraged every single person who has volunteered to come but said, I'm not sure if I can come. I'll be like, please come anyway. On these 3 days, we have so many people. And that would be a good reason for them to be there.
Or sometimes Amy or Ryan are just walking around. Sometimes somebody's walking around like taking pictures and videos for the day. And there'll be somebody who's not with their buddy or teaching that you can reach out to.
Victoria,
Hey, I'll be. Yeah, and Victoria could be another great resource that you can grab her and say like, I need somebody else. And she's that extra person that you can look for when you need help.
We hope we don't have to deal with any of these. We probably
You're
will.
hilarious.
But it's good to know. It's good to know.
It's part of it, and it's not always. Some kids hit, and it's really not that hard. You can do it. You know, not that you should have to, but you can. Yeah.
I just know from experience there are those kids that she said before that do follow every direction and are fine. They don't really need your help as much. And if you see another buddy having a really hard time and you know your kid is fine sitting with another buddy maybe for a minute, you can maybe go and get that person. Or if you know your kid's not going to freak out if you step out for 1 second, and just say, hey, can you sit with your friend here for a second? I'm going to go.
Just that's a great idea, and you will have to use that. Make sure though that whoever you're handing off,
they know.
They know, because I ran into situations like that before where I'm like, oh, so and so's there, he'll be fine, and so didn't know that they were supposed to be watching, my kid, and all of a sudden my kid's out like bopping around. What's going on? So make sure that you do give like a verbal handoff if you're passing off.
We're gonna go over this again, not in as
Not
much,
in depth.
not in
Gosh.
depth, but
You guys have been a great audience. I'm worn out. I'm sure you are.
Can I soapbox one thing?
of course
Ask. You gotta ask the person who's working with the kid first if they need help.
Yes,
That's a big
true.
one. I mean, in CPI training, that's the first thing they tell you too. Now, are we gonna ask if you need help? No, no. We're gonna step in and we're gonna tell you because that's what we're here for. But if you're working with a buddy, it gets insulting. It gets hard on the performer because they may have been told one thing and then you step in. Just ask, do you need help? Now, if you feel uncomfortable and you say, no, I don't think they're handling it, then you can go get somebody else. And
Yeah.
that's not tattling. We're not, you guys, it's not a big deal.
this
you know?
isn't about, as
Oh,
Ashley
but
said a
yeah,
couple
this
times,
isn't
it's
about
not
you.
about any of us.
Yeah.
This is all about giving the kids an experience that is safe and the best experience they can have. And please don't feel if someone, Leah or Kirsty or Ashley steps in, it has nothing to do with you doing something wrong. They just feel like they need to help, and let them help. It's all good. We're all together. We're one big happy team of people that want the best for the kids. So just be happy. Just be happy, darn it.
I hope you absorbed some of this.
Osmosis.
If you didn't, I hope that you will ask if you did.
Oh,
We're done though.
wait.
And I will email this out. Well, I won't because I don't know
I
any
will.
of your emails.
Or Victoria will.
Someone will.
Someone will. Good stuff.
Thanks, Ashley.
Yay,
Well
Ashley! And you should be. You're pregnant. Wait, I don't know how much time we have left, but do we have enough time? Oh, we're gonna do the most fun game. Oh, girls. I've never played it before.
I don't know that.
Okay, Taylor's gonna give you directions.
Okay, you know this. Circle up again.
Oh. The circle. The circle. Yeah.
So innovative.
I know, don't you think? I love it. I like triangles.
I was teaching, so I just ran auditions over for us. And I taught them the jazz square.
Oh.
Oh,
I taught kindergartners and
hey, I can't believe you swear. And guess what? That was No, I work for Anderson, hospital in Anderson. It's a Stevenson hospital. It's smaller than Ball.
This is a very funny game where you and then by next week we'll feel totally comfortable embarrassing ourselves for like 2 hours. So, this game is called Bibbidi Bibbidi Bop. The game is played with everyone in the circle except for one person who's in the middle. And the person in the middle goes up to someone and says something each time, but the way that you're supposed to react is different. And if you mess up, then you're in. So, the first thing is I would go up to Amy and say, Bibbidi Bibbidi Bop. And Amy's supposed to say Bop before I do. So I would say before I say Bop. Okay. Bibbidi Bop. Yeah. So I would go around. Let's practice that. Cool? Yes. Cool? I'm a good mom. You guys will scooch a little bit here so that
I'm gonna go this way.
Okay. Okay. Amy's Jello, and the people on either side of her did the bowl. And all three of them aren't doing it by the time I have done the 10, then one of them's in the middle. If the person in the middle takes the fall, unless it's clearly, unless it's clearly the other. Is that cool? Does anybody feel like going in the middle? Yes, you. Anybody else? Bippity bippity bop, bippity bippity bop, bop, bippity bippity bop, bippity bippity bop. Jolo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I can't say it as fast as you. I'm not good.
Okay.
Bippity bippity bop, bop. Bippity bippity bop, bippity bippity bop, bop. Oh, you're good. Bippity bippity bop, Jello. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. You have to count. I get it. Bippity bippity bop, bop. Oh.
You got me.
I can't. No, you don't have to go in order. You can jump around.
You can
jump around too.
It's a Jello.
1, 2, 3, 4. Bop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bop.
Bop.
Get out of there.
Okay, Sam, let's add another rule on. Okay, so let's do rock star and then the counting to 10. So the person in the middle, I'll be person in the middle, they like jam out on the air guitar, like air instrument, and the people on either side of them give them like a real big fan. So that's rock star.
Bippity bippity bop. Bippity bippity bop, bop. Bop. Bippity bippity bop. Jello, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Jello, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Bippity bippity bop.
Jump around.
Jello, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Double bowl.
Wait, so is it just Rockstar and Jello, or can we like? Do you want to add another one? Let's do a very. Let's do Charlie's Angels. Like everybody.
So 1, 2, 3.
You guys know who Charlie's Angels are? Yeah. Or we at least know the pose. Okay, so there's 3 people, person in the middle poses, and then the 2 on the side poses.
That's best. Okay, thank you.
So we have Bibbidi Bibbidi Bop, Bop, Jello, Rockstar, Charlie's Angels. Ready?
Bippity bippity bop. Bippity bippity bop.
Jello.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Bippity bippity bop. Bippity bippity bop. Rockstar.
Oh, count
Charlie's Angels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Why did that happen? Why did she do that?
Bop. Jump around.
Here you go.
Bop.
Come on, Maddie, you can do it.
Yeah!
I was ready if I was going to
My favorite is when someone tells
I was ready.
oh my god. And how you wobble as Jello. There's no, you just go. Oh my god! I do like Bernie's.
That game was full of anxiety. Yes.
Yep, I can You are so on edge, and I'm like, sorry.
What? Okay, people, all of you now are almost inducted into being Prism Project buddies. Woo! Almost. You are officially inducted after rehearsal is over next week. That was not on purpose. It has to do with the show last year, but it's not on purpose. We did more last year. Can we tell them what our first opening saw? We're gonna do for the past. This is gonna be our 7th year of Prism Project. Yeah, we're actually one of the longest immersive learning projects. Self. I forgot what it is. We pay for ourselves. I want to say self-fulfilling. I was gonna say self-fulfilling, but that's not it. For 7 years, and we usually have the same opening number as closing number. This year we're going to do Shake It Off by Taylor Swift. We thought the kids would really like it. It's great because it's super repetitive and easy to remember. So that wasn't what I was going to tell you. Yes.
Are we going to tell the whole theme? Or just
They know this mystery.
There it is.
I can't. It's a mystery.
It's a mystery.
Oh. They were not able to be here because they volunteered yesterday because we were looking and begging for people. So there will be a few new faces next week. If you could please go out of your way to make them feel comfortable. We're going to hopefully be able to publish the video on YouTube
That video?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Well, it was either that or you and I go and record it in a studio, and by the time we get that together, this is better. So we're gonna have them watch that, but if you could please be very welcoming to them. We're so happy we have them. We again have 42 plus performers. We're gonna be crowded. For those of you who've never been here before, because it's 42 performers plus at least 30 of you, plus the directors. It's gonna be a lot of bodies. But it's all gonna be fun and a lot of fun. So here's a couple things. I don't know what time we have called for next week. Do we have it at noon or 1,
12:15 is what Ryan said.
Okay. We will be here at noon. We need you to be here not at, I don't mean to be like a mom, but I am. 12:20 isn't good. 12:25, except for Ashley, she's great.
I'm just always late.
Yeah, you are. That's okay. We still love you. But it's really important for the following reasons. One, as my husband said, we need to get the room set up. But it's going to be your first week, and some of you are going to be a little bit nervous. We're going to hopefully have the profiles for you. You're going to want to read through whatever I possibly get or don't get by then. You're going to learn the name of your buddy. You're going to get the schedule for the first time and kind of figure out where you're going. We're going to give you a lot of information on Sunday as well. So 12:15 means we start at 12:15. It's going to be crazy. Prepare yourselves. Sleep in. Eat beforehand. We don't eat in front of the kids. We've never really talked about that before. We're not eating in front of the kids. Some of them have dietary stuff. I think that's it. Anybody have any big, giant questions?
Also, we'll be able to group them into their groups.
We will tell you
So
next
you'll be able
week.
to get with like your red group and say like, you know,
I know
learn
this
their
kid, or
names.
I
I know
have
this kid. You know, these are some things, and we'll try to circle around with the groups and give you a heads up on any of the kids you might know.
Yeah, and with the red, yellow, and green groups, we're going to try to have you always stay with the same group. So if Bailey is paired with someone, but Bailey's person doesn't come the next week, we're going to try to keep you in red. So because you know the other kids and they know you, and if something happens, we can have you there. On occasion, if we have a flu epidemic, we might switch you, but we're going to try to keep you with the same group every week. Yes.
I'm assuming like dressed to like be able to move around. But
Yes.
what do you recommend we wear?
No
Clothes.
dress code.
The only dress code is there are boys that are 17, 18 that are starting with girls to notice girl things. So if you could just, I don't know if I would necessarily wear this next week, but my children would be there. But do you know what I mean? Girls just try to be, you don't have to be completely covered up, but think about
And keep
18-year-old
your butt
boys.
cracks covered up. and
Yeah,
stuff
can you
like
keep your
that. Just keep
I
it
know that
covered.
Caitlin sometimes likes to walk around and show her butt crack,
Yeah.
but
Don't think that you have to come in here and look super duper professional. Like what I'm wearing today is something I would wear into the schools, but I would not wear it because I'm going to be bending and squatting and jumping and spinning
I
and
will
doing
wear
all kinds of stuff.
sweatpants and a hoodie.
Wear some comfortable clothes that you
Okay.
can run a marathon in.
Okay.
And also think that you might get warm. Like maybe wear a hoodie but have a t-shirt underneath because if your kid's having a day and you're running around a lot, you might get really hot. So
and there's going to be 70 people in this room. I know this is crazy. You don't have to do this. I'm going to wear Ball State stuff next week because the kids are going to be coming and kind of looking for their Ball State person. You absolutely don't have to do that. But if you have a Ball State something that you think would be appropriate that doesn't have that we could be comfortable in, I would suggest doing that. That'd be fun. I'd love to buy you all Ball State stuff, but we don't don't have a lot of money this year.
We're
We're self-sustaining, but we're not.
It's also, it's cold for this now, but something to think of is keeping your toes open is usually not always the best idea because they can get crunched a lot.
Yeah, luckily.
I don't think that's like a rule, but
Now, when I work in places like a nursing home or whatever,
Yeah.
you have to have your foot.
but you don't.
If you wear flip flops next week anyway, we're going to be a little worried.
Yeah, we're gonna judge you.
Yeah. We are going to judge you. Oh, we're already up a little bit over time. There's one more thing that we haven't told you, and keep your ears open. We're planning a couple of Prism Project buddy outing things, like on a Friday night, to maybe go do things that our fabulous director, young people know that you would think would be fun, as opposed to what I think would be fun. So we're going to try 2 of those. We'll give you the dates coming up to see if you can just keep it open. That's it. I'm so excited you're here. We're so happy that you decided to give your time to do this. So thank you. If you wouldn't mind, we have to move some of the tables. If anyone can stay around for a minute. If you've been here before, the people who are in charge of this room, who teach in here, are very, very specific and picky about what the room has to look like. We have to do tables. There's 3 in each row and 6 rows back. There's not a diagram, but that's what they have. But if you could stay, that would be great. If not, we will see you what time? No. We'll see you next week. Please, you're early on time. It's Sunday next week. Yeah, that's Saturday.
I defer meeting. I don't
Anyway, are you serious? They asked I just wanted to we don't have to use it I just want to get here spread out.
Yeah, so it's 6, 6, and 6, and they go back.
They can have like table, right?
No, really. Yeah, so there's 3 rows. Oh, yeah, what do you mean? Sorry? So the chairs, they go with the table, but sometimes we just move them out of the way because it's easier to move the table and move the chairs back than to like bump the chairs around. So it's 3 rows, each with 3. I think the people that are quiet in the back, and then see that's why you're I don't know what it is. They get like 1. Yes. No, there's 2 aisles on the side. Yeah, so there's the middle row of tables and then a little aisle on each side. Yeah. Three rows each. I got you. Yeah.
I think they're over me. Like, yeah, not this far over. They're like in between. Yeah. I had a class meeting. You think I'd remember this? But
no, I mean, eventually all the ball state rooms start to look the same.
Yeah.
Oh, that's because it's here. Does that make sense? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's up against that.
Look right? Yeah?
Yeah. One more table back here. especially.
I think we should time ourselves. So fast we can get this
Oh
together.
yes, like behavior shape ourselves.
Because last year we got it down. We had it down. But no one ever timed it, so I don't know how fast it was.
So now we have
an email. About what?
It's fine.
What?
Now it's interesting.
Why is everything so freaking stressful?
I mean, I don't mind if the residents take I knew the schedule that we have now. Change.
Yes.
I'm at day drunk. And at the movies.
That's what I need to be, day drunk at the movies.
We can use this.
Yes.
Okay, Taylor.
Just
out.
Taylor, have you checked the score?
Yes.
Okay.
Angle or just flat?
Yeah. We're good. 20 minutes. We're gonna have to wait for time to.
This is also half a person project. Table moving.
So I'm parked next to at a meter because I was like, it's the weekend. I'm pretty sure I can park here till 5. I mean, you guys could always go to Scotty's. Brothers is sometimes pretty fast.
Do you want to sit next to me? Why don't we
Sit and watch the game. Strong statement. I will sit and watch.
Why don't we go to Brothers and I just let them know I need my check soon. But you just put it in the computer. I just went, hey.
16-0.
I just opened the kitchen downstairs and go with the left. Send home the kids. And all my stuff home with the kids.
If you want cookies,
So,
whatever.
are y'all guys gonna open this room next door?
Okay.
Yes, we are. Thank you. Glad you get to you.
All right, everyone,
Go ahead and take a.
I'm not eating. I take a lot.
actually,
Everything is cool. We're on your team. All this time you're like, too much. You're the first, like, I'm like, okay, I put that We got a bunch of kids though this weekend.
You know, this was the best, probably the best IMEA recruiting alumni side of things than we've had in years.
Well, I think we had more exposure than we've had too. Yeah.
They already fixed the schedule where people were sort of forced to go through the booths and just say hi. And also, we've been working really hard with the Alumni Center to help us with the alumni reception.
Yeah, Sue was there. I didn't expect her to be there.
Then I introduced her wrong. Notice I said her name was. I called her by her boss's name.
Oh, Julie Stroh.
Julie
Yeah,
Stroh, I
and then
said
Sue Taylor. Yeah.
At least it wasn't like the poop guy.